Jarvis, status report.
I'm sorry, sir. We've lost auxiliary power. Shutdown sequence initiated.
Don't do this to me, Jarvis. Just a little further.
Negative, sir. My components are old and out of date.
Oh, come on, man. Where am I supposed to get quality computer components from then?
Go to Bondwell, sir.
Jarvis? Jarvis!
Bondwell, Fiji's #1 in IT. Quality IT products, laptops, smartphones, and accessories. Looking to build your own computer? See Bondwell for all your part requirements. We also stock security cameras, power protection, printers, and so much more. Bondwell, Fiji's #1 in IT.
This is Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan. Brought to you by Bondwell.
Good evening, Namaste and Nisa Mulavinaka. This is Straight Talk and we're back again. This is the fifth political party leader that we'll have tonight. Of course, as we've said, all the leaders will be coming here. We have sent them invitations, and today we have Dr. Biman Prasad in studio. That's leader of the National Federation Party. Of course, going through the parties that have already come on Straight Talk, and we making sure that each party is coming and presenting their views on what they believe are the real issues. And going on from there, we have decided to go with double up talkbacks, and that's getting two leaders to talk about issues that matter, or political party representatives. So first up, we had Fiji United Freedom Party. Mr. Jagat Karunaratne came in to present their views on the elections and going forward. Then we had Rote Mumukepa, Sodelpa leader, and she had come in to present her views last Tuesday. And of course, at the same time, we had on Wednesday night one Fiji party leader, Mr. Filimoni Vosarongo. On Thursday night, we had the Fiji Labour Party leader, Mr. Mahendra Chaudhry. At this point in time, of course, we have some technical issues with some mic issues. We'll be back with you after a short break.
Banuando moni, banuanda utale veya. Isa ko Viti, sa iko nga kono salu-salu. Ika na mandevi, o tau ke na tu. Sa ke muindi vie singa ke venga. Manu era sere mai erui kamida ikau tatu mai nanangi koru indomoni koba tade nuyao sengtale kila sai kona vanu mara wasa e marabu aunda unanumi koyani auna mbalabu sasibi konda ndivitu konda bukeia kabakarurungia isana kenata.
Welcome back to Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan. Brought to you by Bondwell.
Good evening, I'm Vijay Narayan and we are ready to roll now. We have in-studio guest tonight, the leader of the National Federation Party, Dr. Biman Prasad. And of course, you can call us also with your questions. The numbers to call 3314-766, 9923-351, that number 9923-351, 9923-352, and the Digicel numbers 773-4766, 773-4766, plus 773-0693. We'll be taking questions from you. So if you have any questions for the National Federation Party leader, Mr. Biman Prasad, he's in the studio, and we will be taking you on a journey on what the NFP's views are on a whole lot of issues and what NFP stands for. We also have video streaming going live around the world, around Fiji and around the world. And of course, our last check, we have about 15 countries logged in and watching this evening show. So we'll get straight into it. Dr. Biman Prasad, first of all, thank you for accepting our invitation to come on Straight Talk.
Good evening, Vijay, and good evening to all our listeners.
And for those who are listening out there, if you've already mixed your grog and ready to find out what the NFP has to offer, we'll bring you the latest right here on Straight Talk. Mr. Prasad, a lot of issues have been raised. Some of the issues have become issues as far as the general elections is concerned. We've got 22 days to go for September 17th general elections. One of the issues that has really come out, and the parties have started to comment on it, on the different viewpoints that they hold, is in relation to common name. Now, in the Constitution, in the 2013 Constitution, it said that all Fiji citizens are Fijian. Some parties are saying if they form the next government, that is the first issue that they will look at because they want that changed. What is the NFP's view on that?
Vijay, thank you. The National Federation Party proposed the name Fijian in the 1960s, and of course, that was opposed by people and politicians and those who didn't want that at that time. And so the point that we are making is these things need not be imposed onto the people of Fiji. In fact, in the 1997 Constitution, every citizen of Fiji was called a Fiji Islander. So for us, the idea of common name has always been there. But we believe that a common name should be decided by the people of Fiji, should be decided by the elected representatives of the people of this country, and not be imposed by a government which was never elected by the people of this country. However, we always believe that being a proud citizen of this country, of this beautiful country, is what people should be looking at. Just because somebody has imposed a common name on the people of Fiji, it does not mean equal citizenry. It does not mean that people have equal opportunities. It does not mean that the poor are treated well. It does not mean that we are addressing poverty. So for me, equal citizenry and common name means much more than just a name in the Constitution. And the party has been addressing the real issues in this election of poverty, inequality, unemployment, and for the NFP, which has always pushed for a common name, as I said before, these issues are much more important in this election than debating on a common name which has been imposed on the people. But these
have become issues, and of course you would agree that they have become issues. You were saying that you don't want this name to be imposed on the people. Now, it is in the Constitution. Any changes would require 75% of support of the members of Parliament and 75% support of the registered voters in the country. How will you deal with that? First of all, a common name.
Vijay, that's a matter for constitutional change, and there are provisions in the Constitution which clearly stipulate how a constitution may be changed, and NFP's position in the manifesto is that we will seek a review of the constitution, not just on this particular issue, but on many other issues where people seem to be aggrieved, and we will push for that change within the constitutional framework. And NFP's history in the past shows that we've been successful in doing that. The role that NFP played in changing the 1990 Constitution within the framework that Constitution had stipulated, it speaks volumes about NFP's ability to engage in dialogue and seek change in a peaceful and within the parliamentary process. So that's what we will do.
The number to call is 3314-766, 9923-351 and 773-4766. Those are the numbers if you have any questions for the leader of the National Federation Party, Mr. Biman Prasad. Now, to make your stand clear, you're saying that you don't want common name to be imposed on anyone. Now, for your supporters out there, what can you say? How will you deal with that issue? You leave it for Parliament to decide and take forward from there, or if you do form the next government, you've got a plan in place for an issue like that?
Exactly, Vijay. This is what we've been saying very, very clearly, that this constitution is in place. We are fighting the election on this constitution. This constitution has been imposed on the people of Fiji. Nonetheless, we believe that fighting this election is the best way to get back to democracy. And once we get into Parliament, once we get into government, then we will seek a review of the Constitution and any of the provisions within that Constitution in a way that is consultative, in a way that we can promote dialogue and discussion, and let the elected representatives of the people of this country determine at that point in time if they want to change the constitution, if they don't like certain provisions. And that is our position. We are very strongly of the view that any imposed values, imposed idea on the people of this country through this constitution is something that the people should have the opportunity, when they elect their representatives under this constitution, they deserve that their elected representatives should be able to look at that when they get into Parliament.
So no stand at this point in time. You leave the people, let the people decide.
We're leaving it to the people to decide, because that is what we want in this country. That is what democracy is all about.
Now we've got a call from Vijay. He's calling from Lautoka. His question is: will the NFP bring back the Great Council of Chiefs and Ngolingoli?
Vijay, again, we have said this several times. Our position on indigenous rights is very well articulated in our manifesto. We are saying that the NFP in the past, in the 1970 Constitution, in the 1997 Constitution, and in its submission to the Ghai Commission, had some very, very clear stand on the position of the GCC and indigenous rights in this country. What we are saying is that when we get into government, when we get into Parliament, within 100 days we will call a meeting of the High Chiefs and Heads of Abusas, and we believe that it is for the indigenous Fijian people to engage in dialogue, to discuss the whole Fijian administration, and then if there is consensus, if there is discussion to change the provisions of the Constitution, then again, that will have to be done within the provisions of the Constitution. So that is our position, and we will stick to that.
Now, for the GCC, of course, it's not in the Constitution anymore. If within the first 100 days you're saying you have this meeting with the chiefs and they say we want the Great Council of Chiefs back, how will you work with that?
Well, that is a matter that we will consider when we come to it. But Vijay, one thing that I can tell you, even under the Ghai Constitution, you can see that the people of this country, including the chiefs, including the SDL party, had accepted a very different structure for the GCC. And so what we are saying is that we have seen the people who are grieved right now, the chiefs and large sections of the indigenous Fijian population about the GCC themselves had a very clear view of what they wanted the role of GCC to be in the new constitution that the High Commission has proposed. So what we are saying is that shows that our people are prepared to engage in dialogue and initiate change in a way that is acceptable, in a way that they feel is good for this country. And that is what we will do when we get into government, because
as leader of NFP, do you want the Great Council of Chiefs back, maybe in a reformed version?
Vijay, it's not for me to say yes or no, because this is a very critical question, but we will support any proposal with respect to the GCC based on the discussion that the chiefs and the indigenous Fijian population in particular want, and we will support that change within the constitutional framework if that is necessary. But right now, our position is that the GCC is not in the constitution. This constitution has been imposed on the people of Fiji, and as elected representatives in parliament, we will initiate, and if we are in government, we have said very clearly in our manifesto that in the first 100 days, because we believe that large sections of the indigenous Fijian community are aggrieved by this, and you can see that within the polls, within the views that have been expressed quite openly by political parties, and we believe that for stability, for peace and progress, that is what we will do, and that we believe is the best way to deal with this issue.
Now, Waisia from Lautoka, his other question was, will you bring the Golingoli bill back? What's your stand on that?
Well, I think there is a lot of misunderstanding about Golingoli bill. The laws about Golingoli were always there. If there is any proposal to bring in new changes, then the NFP will look at that critically, and we will take a position if and when that is...
Well, Golingoli bill, it was clear that there was a stand by the former SDL-led government.
No, I'm not talking about what they were proposing. I'm talking about what existed before what they were proposing. So what we are saying, that in terms of just simple law, Golingolis were always there. What the SDL wanted was to change that, and we believe that if that comes on the agenda again, then NFP will take a stand. And
now, former SDL party wanted this, that, and Rote Mumukepa, now the Sodelpa leader, is saying that all Golingoli, which is under the state at the moment, should be returned to their customary owners. Do you have a position on that?
We don't have a position on that, and we don't support that at this stage. But what we are saying is that if there is a discussion with respect to the indigenous rights, the Fijian administration, Itoke land as a total package, then the NFP will be engaging in dialogue to look at what is the best way forward for this country.
So you can't tell the people that what stand you will have? You will leave it to our discussion?
Well, our stand at the moment is that the way in which the Golingoli existed before, that is what we have right now, and that is what we think we will take on. But as I said, if there are discussions within the framework of the Constitution and in the process that we want to suggest, then we are open to discussion, because discussion doesn't mean agreement on anything. Discussion means providing a platform, providing dialogue, so that we can, as a country, move ahead and address critical issues which bring stability, peace and progress in this country.
That's Mr. Biman Prasad, the leader of the National Federation Party. You can call on 3314766 and 9923 351 9923 352 773 4766 for any questions that you may have. We have a question from Lautoka again. Philip from Lautoka. He has a question. Good evening, Philip.
Yeah, Director Mr. Biman Prasad, my question is, what has NFP got for ordinary workers, farmers, and all the ordinary workers of this country, the wage rate or the basic food items, the issue which we got, what has NFP got in store for all the ordinary people?
Very good question, and the NFP's manifesto is, in my view, the best manifesto, which is addressing the high cost of living in this country. We have already said that once we get into government, we will reduce the VAT from 15 to 10%. We will reduce high duties imposed by this government over the last 6 or 7 years. And let me just say, Vijay, that our proposal to reduce VAT from 15 to 10% has gone down very well. Despite what Fiji First and others say, we feel that a large majority of the people are actually supporting that. In fact, in one of the TV stations, there was a poll which showed that 85% of the people actually support NFP's proposal to reduce VAT from 15 to 10%. So that is a very important component of our manifesto, and we will deliver that when we get into government. With respect to wages and the rights of workers, NFP has a very clear position that we will remove all those decrees that are restricting the workers' right, that are restricting bargaining, and we will bring a partnership model where The government, the unions and the employers can sit together, and what we will bring is what we call a living wage, not this ridiculous $2 minimum wage that this government has been able to impose against the will of the people. A living wage, Vijay, is one that would provide, that would take into consideration the cost of living. Just give you an example. In 2008, there was an independent Pricewaterhouse job evaluation for unskilled telecom workers. And you know what they recommended? $4.36 per hour, which would come to about $175 per week. But if you look at the calculations, I did one calculation very recently with a very typical household. If you have a salary of $200 per week, basically what you are left with at the end of the week, and after paying your rent, after paying your gas and electricity bill, your transport, your grocery, you basically left with nothing. And there are a lot of other things that these poor families need. So what we are saying is that the income inequality, the gap between the rich and poor in this country has never been that big as it is now. And we want to put that millions of dollars back into the pockets of the poor, pockets of the destitute, pockets of those families who cannot afford decent meals, who cannot have. So I think we have very clear policies in our manifesto, and that is what we're going to do.
Just a follow-up question, Mr. Prasad, on that issue of prices of items. Now, this is a real issue.
Sure.
Of course, you have a policy, a proposed policy that you will reduce VAT from 15 to 10%.
Plus duties.
And duties. So let's go there.
Yeah.
You have said that NFP will do that if you form the next government. Items like flour, sharps, rice, tea, cooking oil, powdered milk are VAT-free.
Yeah.
So there was one question raised by Fiji First.
That's right.
If you were saying
Yes.
that you will reduce VAT and you will reduce the prices, these are already VAT-free. So are you increasing the types of items that will, of course, be covered definitely with a VAT reduction? And at the same time, what items will you reduce the duty on?
Vijay, that's a bogey that some people in Fiji First would like to use. I mean, we agree. There are certain food items which are VAT-free. But people don't just live on few items. There are people who fill petrol. There are mothers who bring the produce from Tailevu and elsewhere to the markets. Where they're paying $20 for the transport, now they're paying, $40 or $50. There are farmers who buy weedicide. There are farmers who buy seeds. There are fishermen who buy fishing gear. So, the life of poor families doesn't just rotate with 3 or 4 or 5 items which are VAT-free. But take out, except for a moment that it is VAT-free. Look at the duties. Let me give you an example of how duties have affected the food prices. Duty on lamb chops, duty on milk. I think it's actually quite criminal what this government has done with respect to the duty on milk. 70 to 80% of milk is imported. And the government in the last budget, just an example, raised the duty on milk from 15 to 32%. And you know what they do after that? They go and give a private company which they for which they sold the Rewa Dairy Company, and give them zero duty concession to import cream and make milk and milk products and sell it to the people of Fiji. Mothers today who want to give a full glass of milk to their children have to think twice. And let me just give you an example. Butter that cost us $2.99 in 2006 is costing more than $8, close to $9 in some other parts of the country. 500 gram Rewa Dairy powdered milk, $3.52 in 2006. Now $8 or $9 depending on where you are. Now what we are saying is, let's get real. In the last 7 years, government has taken away millions of dollars from the pockets of the poor and has put money into the pockets of the rich. We had an income tax reduction, company tax reduction from 28 to 20%. I'm not saying that that was a bad policy.
Before we go to the company
But-
tax,
but- but-
before we go,
but-
before we
sure,
go to the company
sure,
tax,
sure.
one of the issues is if you take away duty, if you reduce VAT, you're losing income as a government. What is your plan? Because one of the things you are not saying where you will make up that loss from. All this time you have not said that. Can you tell us how will you make up for that loss?
Vijay, I've said this many times and I've explained this very, very clearly. First of all, people who are saying that the reduction in VAT from 15 to 10% will lead to a reduction in 33% of total revenue, they're wrong. A reduction in VAT from 15 to 10% does not necessarily mean that you will have a reduction in income by the same amount. VAT is a consumption tax, and consumption tax works in a different way. What we will see, and in fact, government's own data shows that even with the 15% VAT, in the last 2 or 3 years, with a slight increase in the growth rate, they were able to raise the revenue from VAT. They were able to raise additional 150 million. What we are saying that, you know, in a year or 18 months, you know, if we can increase the growth rate from 4 to 5%, and I think we should be able to do that, we would be able to rake in more revenue with just the 10% VAT than what we might be getting with the 15% VAT. Revenue and expenditure policy is a political decision of the government of the day. We are also looking at wastages. This government has not talked about wastages, and there are several areas that we would be looking at. And you see, you know, the reduction in VAT, Vijay, can also spur growth in the economy. It will reduce the cost of doing business. One Fiji First candidate, you know, goes around and says that VAT is actually paid by rich people, you know, depending on how you define the rich people. If you say business people are rich, then the businesses only collect VAT. They don't pay VAT. They pass it on to the consumers, and you and I, when we go to the supermarket shelf, when we buy that, we pay VAT. Same with the duty. So what we are saying is duty rates are applied by any government anywhere in the world, and in fact, you know, in the new World Economic Order, you know, in most countries duties are being reduced. We are not saying that you can't have duties at all on some of the items, but when you have zero duty on perfume and you have duty on tea, that doesn't explain.
So
when we have 45%.
you will relook at the
we will relook
tax
at
regime.
We will relook at the revenue policy. We will review
Will you look at the income tax threshold, the personal income tax?
We will look at the whole revenue policy, Vijay, in totality. And that does not mean that we will raise taxes or we will reduce taxes. We could look at the whole revenue policy, and we will look at duties. We will look at how the shortfall in the VAT, either cutting through wastages or increasing the growth, and we have done the calculation. And I think what I can tell the people of this country is we have a very, very clear plan. We have a very clear idea of what we need to do for the poor of this country, where poverty rate has gone up to about 45%, where thousands of people are unemployed, where poor families cannot put good food on the table 3 times a day. And for any government, that is the primary responsibility. And the expenditure and revenue policy is a political question, is a political decision by any government. For example, I can tell you, I mean, we are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on opening embassies anywhere we think of. Now, we will be looking at that. There are several other areas. For example, you know, we will be looking at the whole infrastructure policy, expenditure on infrastructure. So I think, you know, budget is a central political process. But what I'm saying, within that, any government which does not look at the position of the poor and how the gap between the rich and poor has increased.
You are right. Now, we're looking at that, and you don't have a definite answer on what you will be doing with the taxes. You've got a definite and clear answer for VAT, but then it's all hazy. Do you have any plans in place?
It's not.
The fact remains that a clear-cut one. Of course, you are projecting that these things may happen with with the VAT going down from 15 to 10%. One example is used about the chicken.
Yeah.
And of course, you said that if people will have
Consumption
VAT
will-
reduction,
consumption will go
consumption
up.
will increase, but you cannot buy with that reduced VAT another chicken. No doubt about that. So you definitely may have people buying something else,
Yeah.
but the VAT income would be lesser. Now, your projection is that you expected to still have income, but we are to wait and see. Now, my question is, what other taxes can you give us a definite answer where you will be looking at those changes? Of
Vijay-
course, it's a balancing act. The budget is always a budgeting act.
Budget is always a balancing,
balancing act.
and as I've said, it's not hazy. We are very clear about what we're going to do. And let me just tell you one of the reasons why I'm saying that we will have a
As long as you tell me what taxes and duties you'll be looking at.
we will be looking at we'll be looking at all the taxes,
All the taxes.
including the revenue policy in general. I'll tell you why. Because if you look at the 2014 budget, and this is why I've called upon this government to at least give us the state of the government finances as per the 2014 budget up to 30th of June. Because if you look at the budget, 2014 budget, government has budgeted 475 million expected revenue from asset sales. Now, we want to know, before we get into government, we want to know from this government, what is the state of the government finances as per the revenue and expenditure budget for 2014. Now, unless we get that, unless we see that, it'll be dishonest of me to come here and say, Vijay, I'm going to increase or decrease income tax. What we are saying that once we have these figures, we would be able to then have a very clear picture of the revenue and expenditure policy, and it is within the means of any government, as I said before. If we are reducing VAT, if there is a reduction in revenue, then we will be able to look at the expenditure and revenue policy. We would be able to look at the wastages, and we will be able to manage that without compromising the services delivery to the people
But
of
I'm
this country.
asking you the question based on the listeners. They would want to know. Okay,
Biman
Prasad is talking about VAT reduction. Okay, we get that 15 to 10%.
Sure.
But will you be touching any of the taxes and duties? Will you be increasing that? Can you tell us that?
Vijay, one
You
thing,
can't give us a clear answer?
I can give you a clear answer on income tax.
Right.
We will not be changing the income tax as soon as we get into government.
As soon as you get in.
I think we will take a year because, honestly speaking, you need at least a year in government to actually understand the finances. And because we've not had the Auditor General's report for the last 7.5 years, we don't have a very clear position on the 2014 budget. It would be entirely wrong for me to give you a definite answer on any tax. But what I'm saying to the people of this country, the definite thing that has happened in this country over the last 7.5 years is that the poverty rate has increased, unemployment rate has increased, the high cost of living is putting a lot of burden on people.
But when will you be able to give a definite? So a definite answer may come when you have the new budget?
I think, Vijay, you are picking on one issue of tax reduction. I can tell
tax
you
reduction or increase, whichever way, because as you said, these are real issues. The prices of items matter. You said when we started off the conversation that these issues matter. So of course I'm asking you the question so that the listeners know what is your stand on that matter.
The people of this country should not expect a change in the income tax and the company tax in the 2015 budget.
Right.
That's a definite answer. But thereafter, they should expect that as a government, we will be able to review the economic situation, the growth rate, the unemployment rate, and how the economy is performing. Then we will have a very clear revenue policy for the 2016 budget. And that's a very, very definite and fair answer, Vijay.
Now, with the company taxes, of course, there is a level of thinking there amongst people that if you reduce company tax, you encouraging businesses to prosper and invest more because the cost of doing business has gone down. What is your thought on that? Because you have raised that as an issue that company tax has been reduced. Is it a bad thing?
Well, it's not a question of whether it is good or bad. The reduction in company tax is a financial incentive, and in a normal environment, that can work very well. But when you have a situation where there is political uncertainty, where we are going into an election, it is actually not the only thing that government should rely on, making sure that we get investment. So I think it is the jury is still out. I think we will still need to wait to see whether the reduction in company taxes from 28% to 20% is suddenly going to spur investment and attract a lot of investors into the country. That remains to be seen.
The ADB report that came out, the recent ADB report a few months ago, it highlighted that private investment has picked up again. And it was noted by the ADB. What do you think?
Agree that private investment in the last 2 years seem to be picking up, but there is a very clear relationship, Vijay. It's all to do with Fiji's progress towards democracy, and I've said this before, that the conduct of a free and fair election and a move to a stable government is what is going to guarantee and what is going to attract international investors, international donors, international partners. And my own projection is that if we have a very, very credible election, and not the sort of standoff that we see between the election commission and the supervisor of the election, and hopefully that's over now. But if we have a credible election, if we have a stable government, a government in which you have people who can make good policies, I think there will be a lot of interest from international partners, donors, and my prediction is that we could be seeing an injection of close to $1 billion within a year or 18 months or 2 years into the country. And my own projection for economic growth beyond 2015 is 5 to 6% or even more. And with 5 to 6% or 7% growth, I think we would be able to create a situation where we can create a lot of jobs.
So your assessment is we are on an upward trend now.
We would be on an upward trend, and it's based on the fact that
upward trend if you have government, or you leading government, or if any party leads government.
Well, it's a situation in the country. The lifting of the sanctions, the confidence that the international partners are having in the ability of this country to move to democracy.
Thank you very much.
If we debate from that, we will go back to where
we
we
have
were.
a question from Samambula Nilesh. Good evening.
My question to Biman is, in the constitution, they are talking about the race and the agenda. But my question here is to ask him what his party is going to do for the workers of this country. There is no union at the moment. So how, if his party wins, how he is going to protect the workers of this in the country?
Mr. Prasad.
That's what I want to know.
Very good question, Nilesh, and you will know that we have in our party two of the best unionists this country has had, Mr. Attar Singh and Mr. Pramod Rai. These two people stood up to this government when it actually trashed all the trade union rights in this country. And we have a very, very clear policy on workers, trade union rights and living wages. As soon as we get into government, we will restore the rights of the workers by removing the essential national.
So you will remove the essential national industries.
Definitely, we will do that.
That's one of the first things you do?
First things that our labor minister will do, and you can guess who they could be. And the other thing that we will do is we will, as I said, we will bring a partnership model back. Partnership between government, employers and the unions, because they can sit together, work out the situation, look at what is the prevailing condition in a particular industry and determine a living wage that will be acceptable, and that will actually provide,
Now, you repeal the Essential National Industries Employment Decree. Now, talking about national minimum wage rate, of course, it's at $2 an hour. You're saying it is ridiculous. Or what's your stand on that? What would be a decent national minimum wage rate if NFP forms government?
Vijay, as I said to you earlier, in 2008, there was a job evaluation done by PwC for unskilled workers.
$4.36.
$4.36, and
so are you looking at $4.36?
we are looking at more than that, because the living wage that
for a national minimum wage rate to be $4.36?
we are looking at wages that would bring people in a living situation, and that's what we call by living wages. And there are industries, there are sectors of the economy which can easily pay more than $4 per hour.
Those who cannot afford to pay?
That is something for the partnership model and the government and the employers and the unions to discuss. But we will do away with this ridiculous national minimum wage of $2, which this government imposed without actually having a
So just for people to understand, the national minimum wage rate you'll be looking at, it will not cover all sectors, one rate across the board?
In the previous system, Vijay, we used to have
by different sectors,
very good wages councils. Now, when I talk about the partnership model, I am talking about a forum where employers, where government, where unions sit together and determine what is the living wage. And in the previous years, we used to have things like cost of living, and it was all about maintaining a wage which was good enough for people or families to live on. And that is what NFP government will do when we come into power.
So let's see what you've said. You've said that $4.36 back in 2008.
I'll just give you an example of unskilled workers in that sector.
Right.
And that's a very profitable sector. And it was determined on the basis of what the company was doing, on the basis of the profit, on the basis of the kind of job that these people are doing. This independent job evaluation suggested a $4.36.
So your assessment would be based on that these industries or these sectors can pay this national minimum wage rate, so the companies have to pay that. For the others, you'll have a partnership agreement.
Partnership model where a minimum wage will be determined so that, the workers and the families can live.
We have NFP leader Dr. Biman Prasad in studio. Remember the number to call 3314766 if you have any questions, 9923351 and 9923352. We have Emosi from Lami with another question. Emosi, good evening.
Will and can the NFP see that a law is prescribed to stop any government and parliamentarians from approving a deficit budget and see that they revise their manifesto to operation and capital expenditure? We have to live within our means.
I think that's a very good question. All governments try and live within the means, and they should try and live within the means. But deficit is always a feature of government budgets everywhere. Borrowing is not necessarily a bad thing, but borrowing to use in productive expenditures, borrowing which will increase the opportunities for our people in terms of creating jobs, in terms of attracting new industries, and in terms of providing infrastructure that will improve services like health and education, then it makes sense. But borrowing for consumption, like this government has budgeted 475 million and is saying that we will sell shares or the assets, Airport Fiji Limited, Fiji Ports Corporation Limited, Government Printery, and shares in the Fiji Electricity Authority. Normally when you have a house, when you have an asset, Vijay, you sell that to retire certain debts that you have. But here is a government which has been trying, unelected government without a parliament, trying to sell profitable government assets to run its budget. Now, and then it says that the deficit is 1.9% projection. Now, if they are not able to sell these assets, then that projection of 1.9 deficit will be very, very high. So I think your question is a very valid one. When governments actually do a budget, that budget has to be realistic. It has to be.
You said, can you strike a balanced budget, not a deficit budget?
That's right. And what I'm saying is, it's not always easy to strike a balanced budget. Most countries strive to do that, but it has to be a realistic budget, a budget which can be delivered within the framework.
Will you reduce government expenditure?
Of course, Vijay, I talked about.
What is your plan? What is your plan? By what amount will you be able to reduce? Definitely, you would have made your assessment.
As I said, we are looking at a savings as per the 2014 budget.
Right.
Close to about $100 million. Just by looking at what's in this budget. But of course,
what will you cut? What will you cut?
We will cut, as I said before.
What type of areas?
Areas like all these unnecessary, diplomatic missions.
So you believe it's unnecessary?
Some of it is absolutely.
Which ones are unnecessary?
Some of it is absolutely unnecessary when you are in a situation where you have high rates of poverty, where you have deteriorating health services, where you need to look.
Which ones are unnecessary?
I tell you, the embassy in Brazil, the timing, the embassy in South Africa, United Arab Emirates, and there are others that we can relook at how we're going to deal with.
Apart from that, where else will you cut?
We will look at government expenditure in terms of vehicles, in terms of transport. One of the things that this government said when it came into power, they took all the four-wheel drives and parked it at the military barrack, saying that the Garasa government was using. But these days, you see too many of them, and we will relook at, governments.
So you will reduce the number of government vehicles?
We will, because,
Is there any plan by how many? Or
I can't give you the exact
cost of it?
I can't give you the exact figures. This is exactly why I'm saying that the government should release the Auditor General's reports as soon as possible, so that we know what's been happening in each ministry and how and where government has been spending money, for the incoming government to have a very, very clear plan as to what it will do in its 2015 budget. Because let's say that if I'm the Minister of Finance, after September election, I would need to get onto these figures very, very quickly. And we have said in our manifesto that we will have a forensic audit of all government finances within 6 months.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prasad. Mr. Prasad, on government, on debts. Now, we made an assessment based on the reports that have come out, the financial statements, and of course from the budgets, that some of the loans date right back to 1988. We've got ADB road maintenance loan of $13 million US, which was taken right back in 1988. We've got loans back in 1993, Exim Bank loan, Fiji Road upgrading project, and right through even Nosori Suva water supply loan, 47 million US, way back in 2004. And these are all building up. Of course, it's not just the current government, but the increase. How will you work with that?
Vijay, that's a very good point. Loans are usually very long term. So you could have 30-year, 40-year loans. So what you were saying is correct, that governments in the past would have taken a 30-year loan from ADB, and that would still be there. Now, as I said before, borrowing is not necessarily bad, but what governments need to do is to balance that borrowing with respect to economic growth, with respect to government expenditure, with respect to deficit, so that you are able to service your debt and not cause distress to the people in the country in terms of delivery of services. It's like your own personal debt. If you borrow more than what you can service, then obviously you will be putting distress on your family and your ability to look after yourselves in terms of the services. And this is what debts do. And borrowing and large amounts of debt is about future generations, because when you borrow today, our children and their children's children will end up paying this.
Let's talk about asset sales. Just asset sales. Let's go back there, because you talked about government has announced asset sales in a number of areas as far as the budget is concerned. If you do form the next government, will you stop that?
We will relook at government's proposal to sell some of these profitable enterprises, because
which ones will you stop?
Well, we obviously are going to look at Airports Fiji Limited. We're going to look at Fiji Ports Limited. we could also look at government printery. Because one of the things that governments have a responsibility to do, Vijay, is to ensure that the budget is crafted in a way that it's also creating employment. It is not putting out people out of jobs, and especially you don't sell asset in an environment which is uncertain, where the economic growth is low, where people do not have confidence in the system, and they could actually use the current environment to undervalue our assets and buy profitable government enterprises, and we would be selling because we are desperate to sell.
What if you have to do that because you have to make sure that your books are balanced?
Well, after the election, as I said before, we are sure that there will be a lot of assistance from our international partners and donors, and we would be in a situation to reassess and delay the sale of some of these assets.
We have Mr. Nan from Nandera. Good evening, Mr. Nan.
What about the education? They'll put free fees for all the students?
Will you continue with the education?
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. I've said this very clearly right from the day when I became leader, that government's policy on increasing per capita grant to schools and free bus fares is a good one. These are policies that have been put forward by parties in the past. For example, the NFP in 2001 election and its manifesto, the top point in its manifesto was free education for every student and free bus fare. So we will maintain that.
You'll continue.
We will continue with that, because you see, one of the things about free bus fare, I think about only 90,000 students get that. Not all the students get that. But when you look at the cost of living, when you look at what people are spending on food, what they're spending on transport, electricity and gas in the last 5 or 6 years, and on average we have calculated that if you have 2 kids going to school, you're not, on average, you're actually saving $800 to $1,000. So on one hand, the government has taken away $4,000 or $5,000 over the last 5 years, from your pockets, and then before the election, giving you $1,000. What we are saying to the people of this country is we will maintain that, but we will also look at the whole issue of quality of education. Let me just add to that, Vijay, very quickly on the scholarship scheme, because this is another...
We'll talk scholarships separately.
Okay, good.
Let's take a short break. We have NFP leader Dr. Biman Prasad with us. We'll be back right after this break.
Jarvis, status report.
I'm sorry, sir. We've lost auxiliary power. Shutdown sequence initiated.
Don't do this to me, Jarvis. Just a little further.
Negative, sir. My components are old and out of date.
Oh, come on, man. Where am I supposed to get quality computer components from then?
Go to Bondwell, sir.
Jarvis? Jarvis!
Bondwell, Fiji's #1 in IT. Quality IT products, laptops, smartphones and accessories. Looking to build your own computer? See Bondwell for all your part requirements. We also stock security cameras, power protection, printers and so much more. Bondwell, Fiji's #1 in IT.
Welcome back to Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan, brought to you by Bunwell.
Good evening. Our guest tonight is the leader of the National Federation Party, Mr. Biman Prasad. Mr. Prasad, we go straight into scholarships. Of course, the current government has got a scholarship, tertiary loan and a scholarship system where the National Topper Scheme, the top 600 in the areas of study which is required, they go in those fields and they get scholarships, full scholarships. Of course, the rest, they are on a loan scheme. What is your stand on the current scholarship and loan scheme, as you've got something planned in your manifesto which is different from the one that is currently in place?
First, Vijay, we will keep the toppers scheme. Second, we will not restrict those in the toppers scheme and not force them to do what the government tells them to do. If they want to do accounting degree, if they've got marks that fall within the toppers category, they should get the scholarship to do that. Secondly, we will review the loan scheme, because what this government has done, in fact, in the previous schemes, government was offering about 1,400 scholarships. With this scheme, you are only offering 600. Now, what we are saying is we will introduce a means-tested scholarship for those who do not make the toppers scheme. And that means that somebody with a 290 marks, from a rural school, from a poor family, is now being forced to take a loan, and if you're going to, say, University of the South Pacific, you probably need $30,000 loan to complete your degree. Now, we are saying that a 290 mark or 260 mark, could be a damn good mark for a poor student, from a poor school. So we will introduce a means-tested scholarship for students between 250 and those who do not make the...
How many students are you looking at?
We, if you look at the scholarship numbers that we're getting scholarship, 1,400. So we're really looking at the balance of that, but we will have to look at the actual numbers and what are the marks.
So what about those who are currently under the loan scheme?
For those who are under the loan scheme and who are forced to take loan in 2014, we will apply the same mean-tested criteria, and those who fall within that criteria, we will convert those loans into scholarship.
How much money would you need for that?
Well,
roughly for a year?
We haven't done the calculation, Vijay, as yet, because we have to look at those who are also on scholarships in the previous years, who are maintaining. So at the moment, what we are saying is instead of the 600, we are looking at an addition of another 300 to 400 scholarships, given the assessment that I have made of the students and the marks that they've got and where they are coming from. And many of these students are also ETHOK students, because some of them, a large majority of them, had marks, less than 300. So we will be killing two birds in one. We will be looking at more ETHOK poor students, but also students of other ethnic group who have missed out because we have got this topper scheme. So we would be able to see even the loan scheme, when the government is spending money, giving out loan, paying the University of the South Pacific. So when we put all that together, it would not be a very difficult sum to do, but to actually provide the scholarships.
You talked about government expenditure and something that you'll have to look at. Definitely this is the one that will increase.
It is.
Do you have an estimated figure?
We don't have an estimated dollars, Vijay, but as I said, we are looking at more than the 600 scholarships that we're looking at. And as I said before, we've looked at the loan amount, and that those figures are not available to us. But if you look at the amount of loan, the fees that government is paying directly to the tertiary institutions, there won't be a big difference, if we convert some of the loans to scholarships for those poor students. And that is what we are going to do, and our rough calculations show that that won't be a very serious budgetary issue, because government is already paying these fees to the tertiary institutions.
If you do form the next government, how soon will you do this?
Well, those that are in the 2014 category, of course, this will be included in the 2015 budget. and so students can be very clear that we will institute this policy from the beginning of 2015.
Now we have a caller online from Nakasi Felipe. Good evening.
I just wanted to inquire if NFP's policy on the first home buyers, the land prices and house prices has increased significantly in the last 8 years, and now a first home buyer like me can't afford a simple home. I want to know what NFP's policy is on terms of getting first home buyers like me to be able to afford a house.
Mr. Prasad?
Well, at the moment, I think government did the right thing to provide stamp duty exemption for first home buyers and also 10,000, but there is an income category. I think the gentleman is correct, because if you look at the prices in the super urban areas, and again, these are factors which we can look at. For example,
what will you do?
For example, when we talk about,
he's asking what will you do.
I'll tell him what we will do. We will review we will as soon as we get into government, and we will institute a nationwide study, and especially urban area study, to look at the house prices, look at the income levels of people, and on the basis of that, we will come up with a recommendation to see how we can help first home buyers, whether we need to raise the income category, because if the prices have gone up, then the current income level that the government has stated that these people would be eligible. So in the absence of that kind of clear review, and Vijay, in manifestos, you don't always have everything in dollars and cents, because some of these things will depend on what the government will do. So one of the things that we plan to do is to institute a immediate study, get out a report within the first 6 months in government to look at what are the pricing conditions, and then base the policy based on that.
Thank you. Salesh from Narayan, good evening.
I just want to ask you, why are you people always in opposition with the government of the day?
Mr. Prasad?
Well, that's a good question. This is a government that has been that has imposed itself on the people of Fiji, and as you will notice, we do give credit to government where it has got some good policies, but there are a lot of questions that this government has to answer, and I think the people of this country will have an opportunity to decide whether this government is the right government for them on September 17th.
Thank you, Mr. Prasad. We have NFP leader, Mr. Biman Prasad, in studio on Straight Talk tonight. If you have any questions, the numbers to call 3314-766, other numbers 9923-351, 9923-352, 773-4766 and 773-0693. We have another caller online, Sewak from Nasinu. Good evening.
Mr. Biman Prasad, I'd like to find out what's your stand on the existing pensioners and to-be pensioners.
Well, that's again a very good question. We have a very, very clear policy for retirees and pensioners. In fact, it was our party which first said that we will raise the pension from $30 to $50, and we see that the government quickly adopted that and decided, the Minister for Social Welfare decided that they will raise it to $50.
Social pension, how much will you take it to?
In our manifesto, we've said from $30 to $50, but again, we also said that this would be reviewed within a year of government. On the retirement age, we have said that we will raise the retirement age
to 60.
55 to 60, and a lot of people were unjustly retired, in 2009, and many of these people have suffered. And the meeting that we had at the NFP office, Vijay, we were told stories of retirees actually dying after being forced to retire and getting into medical problems, because a lot of them suffered, and a lot of them had plans. I mean, a lot of these people had planned what they will do at the age of 60, up to the age of 60, and then suddenly, you get told by the government to go home, then you'll have a problem. So what we will do is we will review all those people's situation who were retired unjustly after 2009, and we are likely to suggest that we compensate them at least. And one of the things that came out in that meeting was for the government to at least pay the FNPF, their contribution and government's contribution to the retirees who were unjustly retired by the government from 2009.
Now, Mr. Prasad, the National Federation Party has got a proposal in its manifesto regarding land. Can you please explain the planned master lease concept if NFP forms the next government?
That's a very good question, Vijay. We believe that the government's current plan has not worked. Master lease concept was mooted by the National Federation Party some years ago, and I personally did some work on it to make the calculations of how much government will have to pay the landowners every year, and this is in relation to the agricultural land. The master lease concept is a concept where government negotiates with the landowners, and in this case the ILTV Trust Board, and leases the land from them and subleases it to the tenants. So what the government will have to do is to say, okay, this amount of land has been leased to government by the ELTV board. Government pays all the rent determined between the government and the landowners, 1st of January and 1st of July. And the tenants then lease the land, that land from the government, and government will have a flexibility, to determine the rent it charges to the tenants and the rent it pays to the landowners. The landowners would benefit because there would be no arrears. Landowners will have, the TLTB board could reduce the poundage, the administration cost, and so there will be benefit to both the landowners and the tenants. And the government, in a situation, let's say there is a disaster, there is flood or drought, and tenants are facing difficulty in paying the rent, government can always subsidize that. Government can also come in to look at the renewal of leases, where the premium, the question of premium is concerned, the question of goodwill. So what we are suggesting is a mechanism which will bring the government, the landowners and the tenants in a way that will remove any uncertainty with respect to payment of rent, with respect to determination of the ideal rental at a particular point in time. And we believe that this is a concept that can move the discussion on land issues in the future in this country.
Mr. Prasad, what is the National Federation Party stand on equal distribution of Itoke land lease money? It's equal at the moment. It was not equal before this system came into place. There's mixed comments from different parties. What is the NFP stand on this?
Well, it is not entirely correct that there was no attempt made in the past to put more money into the pockets of the individual members of the Matangalis.
But it wasn't equal. It is equal now. What is your stand on that?
It wasn't equal. What we are saying is that is something that has been imposed by this government. That is for the landowners, the TLTB board and the parties concerned to decide whether it is the right thing. It is a system that is in place. If the landowners and the members want to continue with that, NFP government will have no problems with that.
So your stand is to leave it to the people?
Our stand is that it's already been determined by this government. It is working. We don't know what is the reaction of the people. Some are saying it's a good thing, some are saying, but the fact of the matter is that it is a system already in place. And when we get into government, and if there is a case where landowners and those who are receiving the benefits now feel that there has to be another system, then that is open to discussion. But right now there is a system, and if the people are happy, then NFP has no problem with it.
Some of these issues that you've got, like you were saying, when you will go into government, or if you will form the next government, then you will see what can be done. some people have said it's sort of an approach which is where you are undecided at this stage. What's your stand on that? What's your comment on that?
Not really, Vijay. As I said, on some things we are very definite, and things that on which we can make definite policies, we have done that. There are things that any government or any political party in the world will say that it will review, it will look at the situation, and I think it is only fair that that is what is said. So it's not, we don't have a manifesto which is all wishy-washy. We have a manifesto which has some very, very clear specific things that we will do. In fact, we have a timeline in some of the things that we will do. So we feel that our manifesto is a very well-crafted manifesto, a manifesto that is going to put Fiji back on track, and I think it's a manifesto for the future of this country.
Thank you, Mr. Prasad. Now, on the issue of taxes, going back to taxes, of course, you'll have to have that balancing act, and we have questions coming through about that. People want to know that you haven't given a clear answer. If you can give a clear answer, whether you will reduce duty, and you've said you will reduce duty, whether you will increase duty for certain items that will affect the people as a whole.
Vijay, if you look at the FECA, revenue and customs booklet, which talks about the duties, I mean, it's this thick, it's probably 2,000 or 3,000 pages, so I can't give you a definite answer on each product, but certainly there are luxury items on which we don't have duties, on which we can have duties.
What type of items?
I'll give you an example earlier. No duty on perfume, yet duty on tea. But the point is this. The point is this: that any government which turns a blind eye to the fact that when you raise duty from 15 to 32%, you deny milk to the children of the poor families, then that would be a cause for concern. So there would be peaks in the duty that we will be able to pick up very, very quickly, and that is where we'll do definite things. And on the income tax, I said that before, and let me repeat that.
Let's just talk about the duty first, because people have asked that. I'm asking you the question because the listeners out there, definitely some will make the decision based on what you will do with certain duties and taxes. Can you please clarify, or you still will go, you look at the item and decide?
I think I've said this before. We will reduce duty on milk.
Right.
We will review the whole process of increasing duties on basic food items, and there are a number of them. Yes, there will be immediate...
What type of items?
Food items, that affect the poor, immediately. And I've talked about milk. I've talked about...
I'm sure people will be interested in that.
Lamb chops, very, very...
Will reduce the duty on lamb chops?
Lamb chops.
What else?
I can give you a whole list.
Well, give the list, because the listeners want to know.
Yeah, I know.
I wouldn't go down the road if the listeners didn't ask the question.
I can't give you 20 items right now, but obviously our concentration will be on basic food items where the duties have been raised by a significant percentage. We will look at duties on things like farm implements. I know government has reduced duties on certain items, and I think that's a good thing. We will look at the specific sectors, where we need to, grow them. So we will look at, the capital goods and other items that needs to be imported, and whether, we can raise or decrease duties, depending on where we are. So that would be our focus. Trade policy.
For basic food items, you will not increase duty or taxes on any of those?
Well, it is very, very unlikely because we are saying that food prices have gone up by 60%. So the basic food items...
We will not increase the prices.
We will not...
No duty, no taxes.
We will not increase duties on basic food items. You can take that from me.
How about non-basic food items?
Non-basic food items, we will assess that, and I'm saying that we will look at luxury items. People can expect a rise in price of some of those luxury.
Company taxes, by when will you decide?
Company taxes, as I said very clearly, I can assure the people of this country that we will not touch the income tax and the company tax in 2015 budget, but certainly for 2016 budget, we will review that.
including income tax threshold?
Including income tax threshold.
Thank you very much. You have in your manifesto also that you will introduce a national medical and life insurance scheme. How this will be done, how many people will be covered under this scheme, what will this cover, and how much will this cost?
Vijay, that's a very good question. To be very honest, we have not done the actual calculation in terms of the cost. And if you look at the manifesto, we've said that a national medical insurance scheme is something that the NFP will consider, and we will work very hard to create a national medical insurance scheme that will address the various aspects of medical issues in this country. So that is what I can say at the moment.
But that's something that you will do first year in government, if you do come into government, second year, third year, fourth year?
We will certainly, in the first year, as I said, we will certainly review, get all the facts, get all the data, do the research, and come up with a recommendation for the cabinet and for the parliament to consider that.
Now we've got a question from Raki Mili. Good evening.
I'm calling in regards to the children's fares. I have 4 children and I'm still paying for their fares, which is $1.20 per child in a day. What will your party do if you form the next government in regards to this issue?
Thank you. Did you say that you were not getting the fare yet?
Yeah, she is paying the fares herself.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, this is the thing that I was saying, that free bus fare, an estimated 90,000 kids get that. So this is a very good example. Some who actually deserve to get free bus fare are not getting. And I think it's important for the people of this country to understand that when you don't have a parliament, when you don't have elected representatives, when you don't have ability to question government schemes and how they do that, then this is what you will get. And I'm hoping that you would be able to get to any government official and tell them, at least your divisional education officer Western, to say why you're not getting the bus fare, and I hope that you actually get that before the election. But if you don't, we will relook at that, and you can give me a call 9923-989, and I'll find out why you're not getting it.
You'll find out why she's not getting it. Yeah. Now, what is your stand on the 2013 Constitution? You've said a review is needed. Of course, there's certain things you said will go, like the decrees will go. What are the main issues that you really, if we look at priority, that you really think should be changed in the Constitution?
Vijay, thank you. That's a very good question. First of all, I think the people of this country need to understand that this constitution was imposed on the people of Fiji. And as I said before, we had a very consultative High Commission recommended constitution, which was thrown out by this government.
Now, if you're saying it's imposed on the people, you are contesting the election under this constitution, what will you do? So you think the whole constitution should be reviewed?
No, I was coming to that, Vijay. The reason why we are contesting the election on this constitution is because this is the best way to bring back democracy in this country. What we are saying in our manifesto is that NFP in government will seek a review of the constitution within the parliamentary processes laid down in this constitution. And there are certain provisions in the constitution, like the powers of the Prime Minister and the Attorney General, the derogations within the Bill of Rights, and indigenous rights issues that our indigenous people have raised as grievances. So, amongst other things, including the decrees that you mentioned. So, our position and NFP's history is dialogue, discussion, and working within the rule of law within the parliamentary process. And any constitutional change will have to be pursued within that framework. And if NFP is in parliament, if we are in government, we will create a national platform or a forum, and the parliament will be the place where these things will be taken on board. So that is our position on the constitution.
So Delpa is saying the first thing that they'll do, they'll take the matter back to court. and find out the legality of the 1997 constitution. Will you do something like that, or will you go to Parliament and see how things play out?
We don't agree with that. We believe that any constitutional change will have to be made within the parliamentary process and within the framework that this constitution stipulates. So that is our position, because we believe that coups are bad for this country, force is bad for this country. Any constitutional change must not be by force or must not be by any extra legal means. It should be a process within the parliamentary, within the constitutional framework. And the NFP did that with respect to the 1990 constitution, which was a very racist constitution. And again, NFP, if it is in parliament and in government, will create a national platform to review this constitution and make changes within the parliamentary process.
What is the NFP stand on Fiji being a secular state?
Vijay, this has been a very frequently asked question, and we've made this very clear many times. NFP's history was always founded on creating Fiji as a secular state. And the separation of state from religion is a very important one. And we support that, and we believe that Fiji is a multicultural, multi-religious society, and every religion and every community must have the respect, and the state and religion must be separate. Of course, the values of all religions in national discourse is always very important, and we respect that kind of discourse coming from any religious group, and that is where we leave it.
NFP has had some turbulent times since the 1999 elections. You went into a coalition with SVT. Everybody thought that it was a match made in heaven between Mr. Rambuka and Mr. Reddy. NFP was confident that they would come out, and they had a coalition, a dream coalition for Fiji, and the People's Coalition, of course, won absolute majority on their own, by 37 seats on their own, and you had a lot of issues back then. And since then, NFP has struggled as far as elections are concerned. You are now the leader taking NFP to this election. What is different for you this time? You believe that you have something that you'll ensure that you bounce back this time?
Vijay, this is a new NFP. We have changed the party forever. We have changed the party for the future of this country. In fact, the party is now the future of this country. If you look at our lineup, if you look at our leadership, it is a genuinely multiracial party. It is a party which has a history, a record based on rule of law, respect for democracy. And I think we are in a position now to offer the people of this country a future that they would be proud of. And I am confident that given the support we've had over the last several months since I took over the leadership, I am quietly confident that NFP will be in Parliament with a large number of seats. And if we don't, then I'll take the responsibility.
Now, NFP has said no coalition at this stage, and you will only go into a coalition after the election if you have to. Can you work with any of the parties contesting the election?
Vijay, again, a very important question, and we have made this very clear. I have said that our focus right now is to win the election on our own and form the government on our own. And any party worth its salt and its policies and its integrity and honesty should be saying that I want to win the election on our own. So right now the NFP's position is that we are not in coalition with anyone. We've got 49 people contesting for NFP in this election. You know, we had 3 of our people struck out by a decree, and may I say, unjust decree. But we have 49 very good people, And I am saying to the people of this country, look at our lineup, look at our policies, look at our history, look at what I've been saying as the leader of the party from the 29th of March. This election, Vijay, as much as it is about policy and issues, it is also about honesty, integrity, and what leaders have said in the past and what they are saying now. So I think the people of this country on September 17th will make the right decision, and I feel that we will win a large number of seats. Let's say that in the event we don't make an absolute majority.
Yes, that's my question.
Then we will look at our manifesto, we will look at the policies and positions of other political parties, and we will be open to discussion with any political party after the election. And I can tell you this, I think all the parties after the election will have to talk. We'll have to talk. And NFP, in my view, will be in the best position to create that national dialogue, and we hope to do that if we don't make the absolute majority.
Now, Fiji Labour Party General Secretary Mr. Mahendra Chaudhary revealed on Straight Talk last week that he had proposed that there should be a coalition, pre-election coalition of Fiji Labour Party, National Federation Party and SODELPA to form a pre-election coalition and go into this election together. He said NFP and SODELPA refused to do this. Why did you refuse?
I became the leader on the 29th of March and there was no proposal after that. I announced on the 29th of March that we will not form a coalition with any political parties. So I can't tell you what the discussion was there before. But one thing I can say about the UFDF, it was not a coalition of, it was never a coalition, or it was not a coalition.
We know it wasn't a coalition.
It wasn't a coalition of political parties.
We know it wasn't a coalition, but Mr. Chaudhary said within the United Front, he mooted the idea that all three parties should go together as one.
Well, that must have been Mr. Chaudhary.
Is NFP still part of the UFDF?
We said very clearly that the UFDF was formed.
A United Front for Democratic Fiji. Is NFP still part of it?
NFP was part of it when it was formed.
It was part of it. Why did you withdraw yourself?
We didn't withdraw because it was not a coalition of any sort. It was a group of democratic forces before the political parties registration, ensuring and fighting for restoring democracy, which included FICTU as well. So it was not just political parties. Thereafter, and after I became leader on the 29th of March, and at that convention I made it very clear that NFP was not going to form any kind of coalition with any political party in fighting this election on September 17th.
United Front still exists as a group at the moment. You are not part of it?
Well, I haven't attended any meeting of the UFDF.
Why haven't you attended?
Well, because I don't see a need. And I made this announcement very, very clearly on the 29th of March that NFP is not in coalition with anyone. And right now my focus is fighting this election and making sure that NFP wins the largest number of seats.
Historically and statistically, the current electoral system that Fiji has, none of the parties have managed to strike absolute majority on their own. So there will be negotiations that have to take place. Can you work with Fiji first if you had to?
We will cross the bridge when we come to it.
But can you work with Fiji first?
I said we will cross the bridge when we come to it.
Can you work with SODELPA?
As I said before, we are open to talking and dialoguing with any political party after the election. And that includes Fiji First, SODELPA and everybody else.
So for the people who would be listening out there, if they want to know if NFP can work with other parties, your stand is you can work with any one of them.
NFP will begin the dialogue and discussion based on its manifesto if we are in a position to determine who forms the government on the basis of that. And if we find that our policies and our plans and the agreements, of course there will be trade-offs here and there with all political parties, but NFP's position will be that we will follow very clearly if we are in a position to determine who forms the government based on our manifesto and based on our publicly stated policy of what we want to do.
That was the leader of the National Federation Party, Mr. Biman Prasad, and we also have come to an end tonight as far as Straight Talk is concerned. Dr. Prasad, thank you very much for your time, and we expect you to come back for those double leader talkbacks that we'll be starting within the next few days, where we thresh out issues with other parties on different stands that different parties have taken on critical issues that matter to the people of Fiji, who will be going out to vote on September 17th. Of course, tomorrow night we have the People's Democratic Party leader, Mr. Felix Anthony, in studio, and we start off again at 7 in the evening tomorrow night. And we've asked for Fiji First leader, Mr. Vorenge Mbanimarama, to confirm his attendance as far as our Straight Talk talkbacks are concerned. We've had a word with the political party, the Fiji First, on his availability. Of course, he's back from Australia, and we are trying to get confirmation on when he will appear on Straight Talk talkbacks that we have. We also have asked all the political party leaders to start coming in for the double leader talkbacks that we will be starting soon, so that people can listen to the different points of view in relation to different issues that matter to them, ask questions, and then make an informed decision come September 17th. 22 days to go for the 2014 general elections. Join us again tomorrow night.
Jarvis, status report.
I'm sorry, sir. We lost auxiliary power. Shutdown sequence initiated.
Don't do this to me,